I made a post on LinkedIn about what some other sales leaders told me were some mistakes that they wish they could have gone back and avoided when they were first starting in their careers. And somebody asked me a really good question about mistake number 4. So let's talk about it. All right, mistake number 4. Let me read it to you before I get to the questions that were asked of me. Mistake number 4, more activity does not always equal more deals. Traditional wisdom says more activity equals more deals, but that's only true if you don't do 2 things correctly. Optimize your process with data. You understand what activities drive success. Then it works great. Now, of course, you would think that if you just do more activities, it's going to lead to more results. Well, I've actually run into this in my career plenty of times where if you really focus on increasing activities, you don't see a linear increase in outcomes, which might be deal closed, meetings booked, etc. And one person responded and asked me a couple of questions. So let me read through their questions and we'll tackle them one at a time. Hey, Kyle Van Voris. I'd love to hear a discussion /blog/video/podcast specifically around mistake number 4. You're getting a video. What type of trends are you looking at in the data? How would you use that data to more effectively target stale leads inside your database? In what ways can marketing assist with outbound campaigns that align with ongoing inbound campaigns? I'm sure I have a lot more questions, but thanks for the list and your content as always. Thank you, Joey. Great question. So let's tackle them one at a time. First question, what trends am I looking for in the data? Well, whenever I'm evaluating sales data for SDRs or AEs, what I'm really looking for are what are the activities we're doing and what are the results of those activities? Finally, what are all the steps in between? And that's where a lot of people make the mistake. They look at the activities and say, great, we're making 100 cold calls a day and we're booking about 1 meeting a day. Well, what I want to do is I want to break that down. And I want to see how many calls are we making, how many people are answering the phone when we call, how many appointments are being booked, what percentage of appointments are showing up, what percent of appointments are qualifying, and then finally, what percentage of appointments go from stage 1 to stage 2, and then stage 2 to stage 3, etc., until close won or close lost. When I have that breakdown, I can better evaluate what are the blockers that the team is running into when it comes to booking more meetings or closing more deals. By having that data and really doing the analysis, you can figure out are calls effective, are emails effective, is LinkedIn messaging effective, because you're going to run that analysis for every channel that you guys are using. If you're not looking at this data actively, that's the first place I would start, because you need to have an understanding of the current effectiveness of your sales team's efforts before you can do anything to change it. The next question here is how I would use that data to target stale leads within a database. Elaborate more on my answer to the first question. You have to find trends of what activities are converting the highest. And when you have stale leads in your database, you have to then look and understand what channels were used to target these specific leads. What I often find is that some leads were only ever cold called and no one was able to get through, or they were only ever emailed, or they only used LinkedIn, or a combination. What happens is a rep will focus on one channel or 2 channels, and they'll continuously use those channels to try to contact this specific individual. And when they're unsuccessful, they move on, which is fine. That makes sense. We're not going to be successful with everybody. But once leads have gone stale, you can better understand what was done that didn't work, so that way you can try the next thing. Now, outside of that, it becomes a little bit difficult, because if you've tried every channel to prospect into one lead in your database, the question is, why aren't they responding? 1, your messaging might not resonate. 2, they might be unreachable. That's another thing that happens, where you just don't have the right information, or they're just not going to reply to anything ever. So there's other factors involved, and that's where we get into your next question, which is, where does marketing come in? In what ways can marketing assist with outbound campaigns that aligns with what they're doing with inbound campaigns? This is a great question, because sales and marketing should work very closely together, but often I see a big divide between those 2 departments, and there really shouldn't be. Look, at the end of the day, we're all on the same team. We're trying to drive more revenue for the organization, and marketing should play a role in outbound, but the question is, what role? And really, in my opinion, it should be a role of nurturing stale leads. Once the outbound efforts have been completed, and whatever that looks like for you, every organization is different, but once those efforts have been completed, outbound efforts, then there's a handoff to marketing that takes place where they use nurturing tactics in order to warm up these leads and make them more brand aware after sales has done their outbound efforts. Of course, there are going to be campaigns that are run simultaneously. This isn't a all or nothing approach. But as far as more targeted outreach to specific groups of leads versus more broader outreach, I usually recommend wait until after sales has finished the outbound campaign, because there's going to be a lot of activity going to those leads, where if you're also adding marketing activities on top of it, then it's usually not going to be as effective. That being said, one of the expectations here is in very strategic selling situations where you're reaching out to really large organizations like the Fortune 500. Typically what I see is that the SDR team and the AE team will work closely with marketing, and they'll run campaigns simultaneously, and they'll work together in order to convert based on those marketing campaigns. And that's a much more marketing-led strategy that would be an exception to what I just said here. And those are my thoughts. Thanks for asking the question. And if you ever have a question, viewer who's watching this, send it my way. I'm more than happy to give you insights based on my experience working with over 40 different software and service companies and helping them build their sales teams. And if you like this kind of content, make sure you like and subscribe, and I'll talk to y'all soon.